Is the Pete Sousa Show, and we are live here from Central Texas, the 21st floor of the Alico building. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Slovacics. I got to get down and see Ray from Slovacics, but if you are driving down 35, maybe you're coming from Fort Worth and you're checking out the game here in Waco Saturday night, TCU and Baylor, stop off at Slovacics. More than just kolaches, way more. By the way, it's almost like Christmas time. We're going to be doing a live show from Slovacics at some point in November. And also, it's a great place to get some knickknacks. The best knickknacks around. Some really cool college sports stuff. I love Slovacics, obviously. Of course, Daniel Sark Injury Lawyers, D1, Socorro Family Ford. By the way, the local D1 here in Waco is up for sale. I saw that on Facebook. Yeah, this is D1 Dallas, actually, that sponsors us. Lest anyone think it's D1 Waco. It is actually D1 Dallas, but we love the whole D1 family. We also love the Big 12. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk Travis Hunter for Heisman. Why that is not a hands-down situation is something that's puzzled me a little bit. I know, obviously, we got to wait till December, till he is honored, December 14th, or till whoever wins is honored. I'm going to say it's him. We will certainly find out. Also want to talk a little bit about Baylor TCU, where we are headed into that. Talk with the commissioner this morning, Brett Yormark, headed into our show Inside the 12, which is up. You can watch it in Big 12 markets over the air, but of course you can watch it on the Big 12's YouTube channel. That comes up tomorrow. But Brett Yormark will be at Baylor's game against TCU on Saturday night, which kind of just gives it a little more oomph, kind of lets you know how much is at stake with that game and Baylor, and their opportunity now for Baylor to really turn the corner in this season. As you see, the schedule sets up for Baylor to have quite the run down the stretch, and it starts, or I guess you could say continues, on Saturday night. I'm a little stuffed up, you know. Scotty, you hear that? You hear that a little bit? Scotty Swingler.
You still sound like a pro, man.
Yeah, thanks, bud.
It's still going well.
Yeah, speaking of pros, Eric Nadell is going to join us. I should have mentioned that off the top. Texas Rangers radio broadcaster. We talk a little bit about the Yankees and the Dodgers, and we talk about the Cowboys, and we also talk about his induction into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, a whole new class of Texas Sports Hall of Famers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in our next segment. Also in our next segment, I'm going to go through, and I'm not like a rankings guy. I'm more like a comparison guy. I am going to take my favorite horror characters of all time, seeing that this is Halloween, the day before Halloween, and I'm going to compare them to a notable sports personality. And Scotty, I'm going to welcome you to get in on the act here too. If I have someone who you feel like, let's say, and this isn't even one of the people, but let's say Pennywise, right? Let's say I say Pennywise reminds me of Xavier McDaniel, and you say, no, it's somebody else. All right.
Sounds good. Yep.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. I welcome your sports insight. And I also want to hear a little bit about what you think about Baylor. We'll do that later on in the segment. Because it is just a huge game for them this Saturday. But I want to start with the World Series. You open up the New York Post right now, and this is kind of developing. The two fans, if you watched the World Series last night, well, let's set it up, right, Scotty? Let's show the video of what everyone is talking about this afternoon. Not so much the Yankees winning, but a particular situation that was part of their win. Go ahead.
Fly to right by Torres. Betts in the corner. Does he have room? Fights with the fan. And they're going to say that it's an out and fan interference. So an out, one gone in this first. It's the second time that Gleyber Torres has hit a ball that has ended up in fan interference in this series. He had the home run turned into a double back at Dodger Stadium. And yeah, Betts has that ball in his glove, and this fan literally tries to take his glove off. Pries the ball out of there. A for effort.
Well, he won't be watching the game much longer.
Wow, he might.
No
just from a TV. We're going to be watching this on the TV.
John Smoltz nailed that. Neither of those guys. So here are the names of the Yankee fans who have now been banned from Yankee Stadium for Game 5 of the World Series on Wednesday night. After the game, they were interviewed by ESPN. And these two gentlemen said that, yeah, they were let out of the game, but that they would be allowed back for tonight's Game 5. They are not allowed back. The two fans are named Austin Copabianco and John Peter. And you saw there, that was Copabianco who pried the ball out of his glove, but his crony was there, John Peter. And I think there's a name. They're giving these guys a name right now. I think the name is, let me look it up. I'd heard some folks talking about it. I think it's something, the Goombas. And literally, that's not me saying that. I'm Italian, so maybe I can say that. But I think Boomer and Carton talked a little bit about this. They're two radio hosts in New York City on WFAN. They talked about it this morning. They obviously said it was asinine. The Goomba grabbers. That's what they referred to these guys as. The Goomba grabbers. Now, I think when you look at that play again, it does kind of suck in a sense where you don't want Mookie Betts to get hurt. Like, that's the number one thing. Like, if a bonehead fan, like, what if he twists Mookie Betts' wrist? Like, or he hurts his hand, anything that would impact the series, that would be like totally screwed up. Okay, but let's throw that out the window because that didn't happen. After that, I'm like totally fine with it. I'm not looking for fans to be barbarians at all, but hey, it's New York City. It's the World Series. The fans are obviously super passionate. I think almost I would rather have a couple guys who are looking to mix it up and rip the ball out of somebody's hands than a wine and cheese crowd that is looking to get out of the way when a ball like that comes down. Should they be banned for tonight's game? Probably. Yeah. Should they be like the all-time biggest villains in the world? No, I don't think so. And if anything, I think it adds to some kind of mystique or lore that could help the Yankees get back into this World Series. When you look at it from like a macro level, it's like, oh, okay, like there's something going on here. They won. The Yankees actually, they did terrific. They won 11-4, avoiding a sweep. So Game 5 will be tonight. They got Garrett Cole on the mound. We talked to Eric Nadel about that a little bit coming up in the last segment. But as long as Mookie Betts is all right, and look, it wasn't out. It was totally in foul play. I don't have like this major league issue with it. Scotty, what are your thoughts? I see you raise your eyebrows over there.
I don't know, man. Like
give it to me.
I'm a big fan of rowdy fans and ruckus in general at an event. I think that makes it way more fun. But when you interfere with the actual play, there's not many sport. And one, there's not another sport I can think of where you could do that unless a streaker were to run onto a football field after the snap.
No way.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so it's kind of a weird. Like, I can't think of another
golf, maybe, because you're so close. I mean, you could bat a ball back into play, but what?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean? But the decorum as a fan, I'm pretty much all things go to a limit. And when you interfere with the actual play of the game.
Okay, what if I told you that was a foul ball, so it was out of play?
But it wasn't, though, because Mookie Betts made the catch. You know what I'm saying?
But what if I say
and
they got the call right? It's not like he was.
That's true.
Like he was out.
Right. And so, again, I think the player safety thing you mentioned, that's important.
That's the number one.
But, it's different. We haven't seen, like Cam was talking earlier today about, it's one thing if a fan puts a glove out and tries to catch the ball. It's another thing entirely when Mookie has made the play and you're physically wrestling him away from the baseball.
I think anybody, look, I think it's awesome. I think it's part of, it's a moment in sports that we talk about that shows passion. Again, God, I forbid anybody get hurt. But, like, I don't see, like, the clutching of the pearls. Like, like Cam was doing today.
Well, and to be fair, I've been critical. I'm one of those guys that's been critical of baseball with
taking fun away.
Like being slow to embrace innovation, and now slowly Major League Baseball is embracing some of that innovation. But so to your point, maybe. But to your point, I agree. I mean, it makes it fun.
Are you a baseball guy, like a baseball purist, or?
So I grew up a baseball guy. Like baseball was my favorite sport as a kid.
Yeah,
I would say as an adult, I haven't been.
Yeah.
And what else has been interesting as an adult, I've gotten more into Major League Soccer, which runs during the same season as baseball.
Turn his mic off?
I can turn it off.
No, that's Major League Soccer is obviously. I have zero interest in it, but you cannot deny the popularity.
Well, and opposed, it is still nowhere close to Major League Baseball in terms of numbers, but
is it closing in?
It is growing rapidly, whereas baseball has been declining, at least in the 5 or 6 years prior to this one. Yeah,
but it is cool to see how much people love playoff baseball. Like in a moment like this, like everyone is talking about it. Do you think that they should be not allowed for Game 5 tonight?
Yeah, I think you've got to have some penalties to discourage folks from doing it again.
That's my thing. Like life, look, you get consequences in life. Like you do something like that's stupid, like you're out.
But if it's a one game ban, those guys might say worth it.
Yeah,
like
I would. But it's interesting too. Like you go through the motions. Like, of course, like they ripped them. I mean, like. There's no way that's going to be okay. Like it's not 1972, like where they're, like, wow, what happened? Ball ended up in the stands. We don't know. Safe, So I found that whole thing is super interesting. I love when social media, and that's sort of like the best version possible of social media. Something kind of funny like that where everybody chimes in. Some people got their hair on fire and, there's always going to be that sect that just goes over the edge. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people getting involved. We're not talking about politics, whatever. We're talking about these outrageous guys who stole. What did they call them? I got to look it up one more time. The Goomba. There went the thing, he says. There goes there. Now it's back. Yeah, the Goombas, dude. That's kind of crazy. The grabbing Goombas. That's it. So the Yankees play tonight. One other thing I do want to mention, Yankees and Dodgers play tonight, is that yesterday, and I'm going to keep peacocking about this. I believe the Yankees are going to force a Game 7. I'm not saying they're going to win. I believe they're going to force a Game 7. They win tonight. They have Garrett Cole. It's one game at a time. So you win tonight. Now you got Game 6. And it's a one game. Go ahead, Scotty.
So one, I don't root for either of these teams, but being in Waco, I'm a Baylor Bear, and so I by proxy am rooting for Max Muncy.
Yeah.
Two, that Dodgers lineup is just too good, man. So even to win tonight, to say they're going to force a Game 7, I'm still struggling to see myself. But
I am looking forward to look. It's got me captivated. The possibility of I'm a big time comeback guy. The fact that there could be an amazing comeback here in the works is something that I'm excited for. Something else that I am sort of scratching my head about, I guess not really, because I understand how it goes, like, again, from like 40,000 feet. But when you look at the Heisman Trophy and you look at the odds right now, Dylan Gabriel is the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Then you've got Travis Hunter. Then you've got Ashton Genty. Who's the quarterback from Miami? I can't think of right now.
Cam Ward.
So obviously a bunch of big time names. But let's be real here. Like Travis Hunter is a generational football player. Like to me, there is zero question about it. He's a two-way player, right? I'll give some numbers on this because we talked about it this morning on Inside the 12. So he's playing both sides of the ball. So the last person to do that was the one Heisman was Charles Woodson. Okay. But when you think about it, 130 snaps for Travis Hunter last game against Cincinnati. Like he's not just dabbling in offense. Like, and that's what Charles Woodson was doing. Charles Woodson, his senior year, had 11 catches at the very end of the year, 11 catches. Now he returned punts too, but he had 11 catches. Right now, Travis Hunter leads the Big 12 in catches with 60. And he also leads the Big 12 in pass breakups. That's a defensive statistic. Like, and the Big 12 is not the Ivy League. It's not, and I love the American, but it's not a mid-major conference. this is a power conference in NCAA football, playing at the Division I level on a team that quite possibly we talked about earlier this week, and now you see them ranked 23rd in the AP poll. If they can win out, which, by the way, their schedule lends itself to that, they could end up in the college football playoff. And a brand like Colorado being left at home, I don't see that being likely if they can finish 10-2.
I think we talked about this Monday. If there's a chance for them to put in Deion Sanders into that tournament, they are going right. But Coach Prime is drawing the views, right? I mean, that's people are going to tune in. That let's not lie to ourselves and act like that's not a deciding factor for that 10th or 11th seed.
And
right?
I'll tell you, as a fan, it sure as hell better be. Because if you have 5 SEC schools that are getting in and they're log jammed at 10-2, you're telling me that you can't put whether it's Tennessee, you can't put Colorado instead of Tennessee. I'm not buying it.
I'm with you totally.
I'm not buying it. And some more stats here for Travis Hunter. Let's look at, so he's played 895 snaps this year. So here's the breakdown, right? 451 on offense, 430 on defense, 14 on special teams. We mentioned the numbers. By the way, he just has on the season, he's got one drop, and he's Shedeur Sanders' number 1 target. And defense, we mentioned the 7 pass breakups. So when I look at Travis Hunter and his candidacy for Heisman Trophy, by the way, there's whispers of, and this would be the folks with the Heisman Trophy getting it. I know they used to do it at the Downtown Athletic Club. They do it somewhere different now just because it's a bigger venue. But December 14th will be the ceremony. They're talking about Shedeur Sanders also going because he's emerging now as like the 6th or 7th candidate. If they give it to Gabriel, I will sort of, in the most sporty way I can, sports fan way, kind of lose my mind. Like, I'm not saying Dylan Gabriel will not be a very good NFL quarterback. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that this is a generational talent. And I understand Oregon's a very good football team, but I really start to get when you find yourself with the Heisman Trophy, we're going to give it to the quarterback who's got great numbers on one of the best teams in the country. I start to get like Chris Wenke vibes. Right, I get Danny Warfel vibes. I get Marcus Mariota vibes, specifically in this instance, where it's just kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, are we giving it to the best player, or are we giving it to the guy who's one of the best players in one of the best positions or opportunities to succeed? I don't believe that you can say Dylan Gabriel is in any way, shape, or form better than Travis Hunter. It, to me, is a no-brainer, all the way down to Ashton Jeanty, and even his teammate Shedeur Sanders, who could probably be the best quarterback in this draft class. I'm sort of amazed that Hunter is not a runaway favorite. And, like some of those years, you really do have that. I think Barry Sanders was one of those years, like towards down the stretch. And they talked about Ashton Jeanty possibly breaking Barry Sanders' single season rushing record. But that has really, you could say right now, fallen by the wayside. You look at his stats against UNLV. Oh, wow. He had 128 yards rushing. Well, that totally drops him off the pace to meet Barry Sanders in a date with history. So the Heisman Trophy, if somehow Travis Hunter is not awarded the Heisman Trophy, and if somehow a 10-2 Colorado team does not get into the college football playoff, like there's a problem that I cannot solve. There's a problem that no one can solve because on the field, the proof has been in the pudding. Scotty Swingler, anything on this?
You made the argument perfectly. I was talking to people about this last week. No. If the award is for the best player in college football, period, it is Travis Hunter, and I don't think it's close. And you nailed it with the usage, right? We've had players play both ways, but they're always weighted more on one side of the ball than the other, right? Or you use them in special packages. This dude is their best receiver and the best receiver in the Big 12, and he is the best corner in college football, and they don't even know what position he's going to play in the NFL because he could play both.
If he's more than likely going to be a top 5 pick or at least the first wide receiver taken.
The first non-quarterback taken. Yeah. You would think. I mean, it's not, and Gabriel, that's just best quarterback on best team. And let me what's made the Heisman Trophy special is when it's not. Like when Robert Griffin won it here in Waco.
Yes.
Baylor wasn't close to the best team in the country, but he got them to 10 wins, which for a team that hadn't been to a bowl game in 2 decades was unbelievable.
I really appreciate when they do that. And there's other guys. I think Josh White won it with Oklahoma. It just there's players who are, I'm not saying they're not very good, but it's kind of like our buddy Skip Bayless used to say about the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Very Good. It's the Hall of Fame. Like it's not, this is not an award for, and it's funny because if a player of lesser ilk was just kind of grinding it out, playing both ways, and they were like, oh, look at this player. He's really good. He plays both sides of the ball. No, this is a player who is the best in the country at wide receiver and one of the best cornerbacks in the country at a prominent school in a big time conference. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I should put my money where my mouth is and just put like the mortgage payment on Hunter to win the Heisman.
And it's not, he's not playing like gimme plays, right? Like he is covering the opposing team's top wideout.
Yeah.
And if you go just watch any of his games from this season, he'll make 1 or 2 catches every game. How did he get to that ball? I mean, he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I say the fact that Travis isn't a runaway favorite right now is kind of it's an oddity to me, but you know, there's, again, I know that there's so much I don't know, but this right there. So I get to say there's very few things in life where I get to do what I want. I promise. And this wasn't anything I expected. And trust me, I know it's not that big a deal, but hey, I get to say what I think on this show. And that is really, really what I think. And rarely, I always try to understand that in sports, there's a gray area. There's so much as far as players and coaches that we don't know. But by the way, one last thing. I was thinking about this on the way to work yesterday because I was overwhelmed with like some work stuff and some life stuff. And I saw someone call me who I just wasn't ready to talk to. And I was like, I'm not getting that phone call right now. And then I thought, you know, we give these coaches a hard time and even players sometimes, but like when you lose a football game, like now a lot of times coaches are worried, you know, whether it's subconscious or whether it's surface level, you know, if your record is 3-5 and you're a coach that's considered to be on the hot seat, like your wife is concerned, your staff is concerned, your kids may have to switch schools at the end of the year. Like, and by the way, you got a bunch of guys in the locker room who are disappointed, whether in themselves or maybe at you. And you got people asking you all kinds of questions that you don't want to answer. And people that you feel are not qualified to ask the questions, whether you're right, wrong, or indifferent. Like, no wonder these guys lose their minds sometimes.
Absolutely. And you didn't even mention the transfer portal. So now if you're a college football coach and you're 3-5, you might already have a group of 5 guys getting together going, man, can we dip out and go over here, over there? Because it's so easy now.
Some of them do already.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, this speaks to when we talk about the NFL and players that I find so attractive. Ollie Gordon, I actually wrote it down or typed it out, whatever. Ollie Gordon said this week, so he's a guy who is expected to be still, even with his struggles, the number 1 running back in the Big 12, even with KJ Henry just absolutely running wild. But here's what he said earlier this week when you talk about, I have it here somewhere. Here we go. So a lot of people expected Ollie Gordon to shut it down. He is a high-profile running back who is preparing for the NFL draft. His team, hey, they're not very good this year. They're nowhere near as good as they're expected to be. They're 0-5 in their last 5 games. And a lot of people, I think specifically it was, I forget the ESPN analyst who it was. Roddy Jones. I think Roddy Jones, if memory serves me correctly, was like, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if you actually saw him step away from playing. We don't want to get him hurt. His offensive line is not that good. Well, here's what he had to say about it. He said, quote, he's talking to the media yesterday. He said, my mama always told me to finish what you started. What would I be to my team to give up on them because our season is not going the way we want it to? Like, I don't care. And I could talk to Jim Nagy today with the Senior Bowl, and we will talk to him here in the upcoming weeks about players that are separating. And Jim is a pro personnel guy. I can't imagine someone in an NFL front office that sees a quote like that, his stock doesn't rise just a little bit. I mean, that is very attractive to me as a man, and as clearly just somebody who knows what to say. And also, if there was a bit of a blemish on him, it was, hey, he got a DUI in the offseason before the year. And if you remember during that DUI, Mike Gundy, like only Mike Gundy came to his defense, and he took some crap for the way he said it. But maybe there's a little bit of that too. Like, hey, like this guy went to bat for me when I was down. Like, don't think that I'm going to go running now. Pretty cool deal. Pretty cool. I know you're a Baylor guy, but that to me is pretty effective as looking at him as a leader.
Yeah, I can respect anybody with that kind of mentality. Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're going to step aside. We're going to come back. The Pete Sousa Show. I'm joined here by Scotty Swingler. We are going to be joined by some of my favorite horror movie villains of all time, and we're going to compare them to some of the greatest pro sports people of all time. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserved it then.
Which seems like it fit. Sports.
Are we back? We are. Give me that. Getting festive up in this. All right, so I'm going to take this mask off in a second, but there's no better way to intro our next segment. What I'm going to do here, Scotty, is I'm going to take I'm going to get this right. I think you can really, there you go. So what we're going to do here is we are going to take my favorite villains from horror movies of all time. Okay, as we see the Daniel Stark injury lawyer's mug. Don't forget, you're your best personal injury lawyer. I mean, I'm Michael Myers. I'm out there everywhere, knocking stuff over. You see, you know how many cars I've been hit by? Do you know how many cars is hit by Michael Myers on purpose? Trust me. I'll go to Daniel Stark injury lawyers every time. They take good care of me. That's why I keep showing up over and over again in more movies. Anything from you, Scotty?
I've got nothing.
Here we go. You ready? Okay, so. Sorry about that. Do you think you could hear that at all?
Yeah, we could hear it. It was muffled, but we have you.
Okay. All right, so check it out. I am going to reveal my number one, just my favorite horror movie villains, and I'm going to compare them to athletes. A couple of them I actually have. I couldn't think of an athlete, so maybe you can help me. All right, we're going to start with Art the Clown. Okay, are you familiar with Art?
So this is where I'm going to be weak on this game, as I haven't seen all the horror movies.
Doesn't matter. So I haven't seen Art the Clown either, but he's like You want to talk about terrifying. Good, look him up, dude. Oh my God. He's described as a vile and dangerous killer clown. Art is a demented demon with a penchant for viciously slaughtering nearly anyone he encounters. His preferred method of killing and torture is through gruesome mutilation, in which he keeps his victims alive just to see how much torture a person can endure. Okay, I got one that came to mind right away. There's two guys, okay? James Harrison, right? I mean, just like an absolute killer.
Yep.
And then also, I think with a little bit of sense of humor and kind of a nasty side, maybe a Lester Hayes, right? Because Lester Hayes, when you think about him, you could compare him to Art the Clown, in where he literally was out to end people. And he had to stick them, and he was nasty. And I think that Lester Hayes would be a great example of someone who I could compare to Art the Clown, because Art the Clown too is like, there's a little bit of humor to him. I don't know if you've seen any clips of Art the Clown. Did you look at
I looked him up. I think the James Harrison one's pretty good.
Yeah, he's a scary ass clown. That is for sure. All right, moving on. Here's one that I thought of pretty much immediately. So Leatherface is up there, right? We're in Texas. Now, Leatherface, he murders people to get Mike, what's going on? Mike is over here moving. Mike, what's happening?
All good.
I mean, he just barges in here with his shirt untucked like always. Mike, do you have a sponsorship with Untuck It?
No, not yet. It's mostly him.
He's writing something down.
It's mostly him.
I mean, just tell him at this point.
I'm trying, Pete. I was trying so hard.
Do you know? Have you heard of? Do you have an iPhone? Do you ever text?
I do.
Okay,
I do, yeah.
so you could very easily text Gotti, right? No, I'm serious.
Yes, I could.
Do we need? We've talked to Corey about starting up like a Slack channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go start that now?
All right, let's keep going with Halloween. Leatherface, okay? Now, perhaps the scariest villain because of his disturbing appearance. All right, cover your ears, okay? He makes the masks out of his victim's skin. And he likes to strike true fear in the folks he attacks. Now, Leatherface's, here's where I come up with my my assessment and my comparison. Leatherface's extended family is equally disturbing. Okay, he's got an extended family, but they lack his insanity. No. But they lack his instantly memorable and traumatizing look, which has cemented him along greatest icons in the horror genre. Now, here's where I think this is one of my best ones. Pat Riley. And here's why. Okay. Pat Riley has an iconic look that we all, it's undeniable. Everybody, when you think of Pat Riley, you think of the look. So as sexy as Pat Riley is, Leatherface is that disgusting and scary, right?
That's funny.
Scotty?
Yeah, that's
and then
funny.
When you think about Leatherface's and Pat Riley is a straight killer, okay, wherever he goes. And then you think about Leatherface's extended family, okay? Well, Pat Riley sort of has like the family. It's like they talk about like heat culture and stuff, and like whether you like it or not, that exists. Like Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley ultimately have dragged that team to 2 NBA finals. I mean, like bad teams, and they've done it with an identity and a culture, which is Heat basketball, which I look at as Leatherface and his family members, all the comrades.
That's good.
I think it's all right.
I think you're 2 for 2.
Okay, here's the next one. As I take a sip of the water. Michael Myers. Now that he's my favorite of all time. Okay. Michael Myers. Now remember, I just did the Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers commercial. Michael was, he was run over by like 100 cars. He was shot all the time. You could not kill him. Despite being shot in a in a hail of bullets, sorry, this is my dyslexia, in a hail of bullets and being stabbed multiple times, Myers is seemingly indestructible, making him even more terrifying. Some have stated that Myers may be immortal and the personification of evil himself. Now, again, I don't want you to get too caught up in the I'm comparing people and making them evil. I'm talking about just the badass qualities of these individuals. An elite level, Tiger Woods is Michael Myers. And here's why. Okay. Now, the flurry that started with Michael Myers, I think you could say the only thing Myers really may lack a little bit is Tiger's greatness. But Myers was, when Halloween came out, it got 4 stars. Jamie Lee Curtis, I mean, it was a box office smash. Everybody went to see it. And they're still making Halloween movies, some of which are actually okay. Halloween 3, I was terrible. Throw it out. But it was kind of like Tiger's maybe some of his personal struggles, right? I mean, when you think about you had like in 2010, okay, Tiger has all that drama goes on, right? The affairs and that stuff comes out. And then he comes back. He has a decent run at the Masters. But then after that, it's kind of like, what happened to Tiger? It must be over for Tiger. Like emotionally, physically, the knee surgeries, all of his trouble. But guess what? Like, you can't kill Tiger Woods. In 2018, we watch him at the Masters, and he wins Augusta. When nobody thought he was going to win Augusta. It was comparable to Jack Nicklaus winning at the Masters in 1986. When Jack Nicklaus, I recently, or I'm in the middle of that Vern Lundquist book, they didn't even have him, like Vern talks about the Masters in 86. Like, Jack wasn't even on their board of players who were going to win. They had a Calcutta, which is basically, if you don't know, it's like a draft. So I would put up a golfer like Seve Ballesteros, and you would bid $1,000 on him. And if nobody outbids you, that's your golfer. And the person who wins the Calcutta gets the entire pie, gets like 70%, second place 30% or whatever. But nobody even bid on Jack Nicklaus in that 86 Masters, which gives you an idea of how crazy of an accomplishment that was. I'm talking about Vern Lundquist and his CBS cronies. Apparently it was Tom Brookshire was forced to take him for $400, and he won the Calcutta, a lot of money. I think it was like 75 grand or something. So that's kind of off on a tangent. But Michael Myers, I compare him to Tiger Woods, one of the best of all time, and somebody who you just cannot kill. All right, Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter would you consider him a horror villain, right?
Yeah. For sure. He is more frightening than most horror villains.
He is an Oscar-winning horror villain. And so you would say he's polished for sure.
Calculated.
Decorated. And he's always in control. And he's a former psychologist, I think. He's a master manipulator. So who would you compare him to? You could say it could be player or coach. If you can't come up with it, that's okay.
I can't come up with that quickly.
Phil Jackson. Just the absolute, he's just sitting there not really doing anything, but there's something, it's more mind than physical. I believe it's Phil Jackson.
That's good. I was trying to think of a coach also, so that's good.
All right, this is going so well that I'm going over with time. So unless Scotty has anything to add, we're going to get to Eric Nadel.
I've got a couple that I'm thinking about.
Okay, let's go. Bring them on.
Okay, you ready?
Welcome to the party, Scotty.
All right, this one was pretty easy. Jason Voorhees. Okay. What's the first thing you think of when you think of Jason Voorhees?
Well, I think of the hockey match.
Exactly. Okay, so you could be really tropey and pick a hockey player, but I was thinking of who do I know for wearing a mask and being a stone cold killer. A little bit of a throwback. Richard Hamilton.
Yes, sir. That's
Richard Hamilton with the Detroit Pistons.
And by the way, Jason Voorhees, if I remember correctly, from the New Jersey area. Rip Hamilton from that portion of Pennsylvania. That's not too far from Jersey. So that's pretty good. That's a good one.
Good.
He's from, I think, Collegeville. I might have that. Coatesville. He's from Coatesville. Not that far from where Jason Voorhees is from. That's pretty good. Is that it?
That was the main one. I'm trying to think of, have you ever seen Insidious?
No.
There's a the villain of that film is called the Lipstick Face Demon. It's this bright red face with the mouth open the whole time, and it's very frightening looking. It's very scary. And I think I was thinking of Draymond Green, but I didn't quite spin up why and how.
That Draymond Green,
just because Draymond Green is like the best villain in sports, probably. But
Mike, you're back in here again. Can I help you? Yeah.
So we went to, my buddy Casey and I went to see the 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw.
I was actually scared. I thought I was in trouble. All right,
no, we went to see the 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw the other day. And afterwards, a Q&A with the brother of the guy who did all the special effects and stuff. He died like 20 years ago, but this guy's got all his stuff and books and all kinds of stuff. If you watch Texas Chainsaw, Gunter, I can't remember his last name, that played Leatherface. Real sweet guy. He was a poet. He was all this stuff, right? Which, I mean, you would think, right? It's always the opposite of whatever you play. Anyway, this guy that did all the
Gunnar Hansen.
There you go. The guy who did all the special effects. If you watch Texas Chainsaw, at one point there's a chicken in the living room in a cage that they're just keeping like in a little bird cage, and the thing's like, fighting to get out. That chicken died every day. So the guy that did the special effects had to come in and replace the chicken every morning because Gunter would get he would feel bad like if the chicken died. So he was trying to save Gunter's feelings by replacing the chicken, every single day. I have no idea. I don't know if it was the heat because, I mean, it's hot out there. I don't know if it was being caged in that little tiny cage or whatever. But that's a great story.
That is
right?
a hell of
I mean, that's a great story.
Where did you guys go to see it?
At the PAC here in Waco. Yeah.
All right.
It was great. It was done by Waco Independent Film Festival.
Oh, pretty cool. All right, there you go. Mike Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen. Call him Leatherface. I think that might work. We'll be back after this. Eric Nadel, folks. How does he follow these killers? He's Eric Nadel. He's in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. We're going to hear from him next. Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me, and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to. The only thing we have to look forward to. That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned kind of the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
All right, so every once in a while, the Rogue Media Network, we reel in some big fish. And actually, a couple days ago, we had Sawyer Robertson up here. Probably one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country. God forbid we get Mike to give us the rights to at least use clips of that. But I guess that's, what do they call that? A moratorium?
I have no idea.
Embargo. There's an embargo on the Sawyer Robertson interview that everybody would want to see right now. But I guess we'll see next week, which is a whole nother story. But, that's why I just do this. So we did talk to Eric Nadel this morning, And I was so pumped to talk to him about the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, but also some timely stuff, Yankees and Cowboys. Can the Yankees come back? Are the Dodgers going to win? What does he think about the Cowboys? This is my chat with Eric Nadel. 40 years, more than 40 years, as the Texas Rangers play-by-play announcer, the voice of the Rangers, Eric Nadel. Honored to talk to him. Check it out. A year ago, almost to the day, the Texas Rangers win a world championship. Now, you had been along for this ride for a very long time, decades. What did it mean to you to become a part of that history with your calls and with your experience, and now with the Rangers being at the top of the mountain?
It was really the culmination of everything that I'd worked for and everything that I had dreamed of. Having done the Rangers for 45 years at that point, never having won a World Series, and had the heartbreak of 2011 when the Rangers were a strike away from winning the World Series, not once but twice. It was just incredibly rewarding, incredibly satisfying to share that with our fan base. And I think the disappointment of 2011 brought the Ranger Nation, if you will, even closer together. It was a shared experience, so that winning last year meant that much more, I think, because of how close they came in 2011.
Yeah, it's like we're all survivors of a shipwreck, right? It's like, we become so much closer.
Yeah.
When you look at your career and being part of the fabric of the Rangers organization and their fan base, for somebody who doesn't know, what is it like for you to be out in the community and to come in contact with a hardcore Texas Rangers baseball fan?
Well, it's tremendously gratifying for me because as a kid, I was a radio junkie, and I listened to Yankee games on the radio. Then I listened to Mets games on the radio, and all the other sports, the Knicks and the New York Rangers and the Giants and the Jets. I loved sports on the radio. I loved radio, period. I loved listening to the disc jockeys. So for me to have had the feeling of experiencing those announcers as my friends, to have that same experience where I'm the guy that people have listened to, for generations now, and who view me as a member of their family or a friend of theirs. It's really satisfying. It's really rewarding. It's really what I wanted to do. When I was growing up and listening to those Mets announcers, I wanted to be them. I was probably more motivated by Marv Albert than anybody else. Marv was doing radio then for the Knicks and the Rangers. They just did the home games on the radio, and Marv did the games for both teams. And, I wanted to be Marv Albert. In fact, I told people when they asked me what I was going to be when I grew up, I told them I was going to be the radio announcer for the Rangers. And I meant the New York Rangers. But I guess I wasn't specific enough in my prayers. But, having been, such a radio guy my whole life, it's just a fantastic experience. I can never get enough of it, talking to people and hearing the stories about where they were when they listened to the last game of the World Series, or when the Rangers clinched their first pennant in 2010. I love hearing that stuff. That's what I do this for.
Well, you've done it in Texas specifically for a very long time. Clearly, you've had opportunities to go to other places. You've stayed here. What about Texas has become so home for you?
I think people here, the sports fans here, are much more tolerant, if you will, patient, if you will, than a lot of other markets. I know you're from Philly, and they don't put up with a whole lot of failure there. They're not exactly the most patient fans. I think the fans here are a lot kinder, if you will, to accepting failure, which in some cases is probably not a good thing. But they let me learn how to do the job on the job, really. I was a hockey announcer when I got this job. I'd never done a baseball game, and I was allowed to learn how to do this on the job. Of course, it was a whole different era. The Rangers were a really poor team back then. They had to watch their pennies, which is how they wound up hiring me. And I think that the fans here are probably much more likely to accept somebody like me coming from the outside, learning a broadcasting job on the job than people in other markets might have been.
Yeah, that is a very insightful answer because you have to earn your stripes in Texas, but they're open-minded, right, to people like yourself or even myself. I want to ask you, before we get to the Hall of Fame and a little more about the Rangers, I do have a question. This is just selfishly. So you go to Brown, okay? That's one of the best schools in the world, not just the country. Are your parents like, are you sure you want to be a radio broadcaster? Did anybody say, yeah?
Absolutely. They fought me on that all the way. My dad was a dentist. My mom was a CPA. And, they really urged me to do a profession where I could work for myself. But that being said, they were the ones who bought me a tape recorder when I was 14 years old. They were the ones who paid for me to go to Northwestern University when I was a junior in high school to learn how to be a radio announcer. They were the ones who paid for, an Ivy League education, even though I was saying all along I wanted to be a radio announcer. And so while they weren't exactly in favor of it, they tolerated it, and they actually helped me along. And fortunately, they lived long enough to see me do games at Yankee Stadium and come up to the broadcast booth and sit with me up there, where we had gone to so many games, when I was a kid. And, I'm really glad that they got the opportunity to do that and see that, as it turned out, it wasn't such a dumb choice.
Not at all. Eric, you've had a front row seat to the history and the evolution of the Rangers. What are some moments that stick out to you? I mean, you've seen it from George W. Bush to, Nolan Ryan, the front office changes, player changes. What are some moments for you that stick out?
Well, obviously the clinchers, clinching the World Series, winning the pennant 3 times, particularly the first one in 2010 when the Rangers had never won a pennant. And, Neftali Feliz struck out A-Rod for the final out to send the Rangers to the World Series. That was my favorite all-time call until last year when we had the World Series winner. But the Rangers have had a lot of individual achievements. We saw Nolan Ryan throw 2 no-hitters. We saw his 300th win. We saw his 5,000th strikeout. We saw Kenny Rogers throw a perfect game. Josh Hamilton had a 4 home run game in Baltimore. The Rangers set a major league record in Baltimore one night when they scored 30 runs, the only team in modern major league history to score 30 runs. Those are some of the memories that I have of individual games. But if you're looking at the collective whole, I think for the most part, you're looking at a lot of frustration. I always thought that I'd go down, my legacy would be as the bearer of bad news, because things never quite worked out for the Rangers. I'm the one who, called the David Freese triple in the 9th inning of Game 6, and then the Lance Berkman broken bat single that tied the game the second time. And the ball that went through Yu Darvish's legs that cost him a perfect game with 2 outs in the 9th in Houston in 2013, and on and on and on and on. And the long history of the Rangers having high-scoring teams but not having enough pitching. For a long time, that was the story of the Texas Rangers. And so, all of those things kind of combine, when I think about an answer to your question.
You've been affiliated with some big-time institutions, the National Baseball Hall of Fame, Texas Sports Hall of Fame. What does it mean for you to have to share that affiliation and to be able to reach out and touch, that Texas Sports Hall of Fame and also the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Well, it's big. Texas is my adopted home. I've been here since 1976. So I've lived here for more than 2/3 of my life. And, it's been so accepting of me that it's a thrill for me. And then, to have the sort of announcers in that Hall of Fame, before I did, the Brad Shams and the Vern Lundquists of the world and the rest of them, to be included in a body like that is a huge, huge honor. And, people say, you've lived in Texas now for almost 50 years. Are you a Texan? And I don't know that you become a Texan. I think if you're a New Yorker, you're always a New Yorker, especially if you grew up there, went to high school there. You might not talk like this anymore, but you're still, you're still at heart a New Yorker. But for me to have been so well accepted in Texas and then wound up, being honored this way it's a huge thrill.
How about I got to ask you now about the World Series that's playing out before us. Yankees obviously off to a really slow start. Back in the fight, you might say, after last night. You've seen it all, and I have to mention, at the forefront right now is that doc. Have you seen the documentary about the Red Sox, the comeback on Netflix?
Haven't watched it yet.
I think you would like it. Now, you probably know it all, as I do a little bit, but I bring it up because it's kind of right there in pop culture right now to be able to reach out and touch that down 3-0 comeback. What do you think the Yankees' chances are of mounting or finishing off some type of comeback like that?
Well, obviously the odds are stacked really heavily against them. They've got Cole going tonight, but Flaherty arguably had as good a year as Cole did this year. Now Cole was dominant in the first game. Flaherty was awfully good too. But if you go into each game rating them as a toss-up, and you just do the math on that, for the odds of the Yankees winning the next three, if they have a 50% chance in each game, I think would come out to 1 in 8, mathematically speaking. So I think that's about what you're looking at. If you want to add the previous game to it, it was a 1 out of 16 chance. And
this is that Brown education, folks.
just looking at it that way, it's very unlikely. The amazing thing is, Judge still hasn't gotten going. He showed some signs of it last night. He had much better at bats. He even had an RBI hit late in the game. So I think if the Yankees are going to come back, Judge is going to have to be a part of it. And I think that's going to be pretty obvious, but I think it's a big key to whether the Yankees can send the thing back to LA and have a chance to win 2 games in LA.
Could you describe how quickly that happens when a player of Aaron Judge's, tremendous ability and obviously experience and numbers goes into a slump, but then they snap out of it? I mean, it happens fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, I wish I could explain it. I don't know enough really about the mechanics of hitting to fully understand it, but at least speaking about the mental side of it, with relaxation at the plate being so important to the success of a hitter and confidence at the plate, I think in that regard it's easy to understand how one hard hit ball or even one lucky hit can change a hitter's mindset, and sometimes that's all that it requires.
With all the travel and all the again, the front row seat you've had for so many years, more than 40 with the Rangers, do you sometimes see a player's body language just change? I mean, you're on the road with them, and from a guy who's been slumping, who hasn't had a hit in 15 days, to now all of a sudden he just went 4 for 4.
Not as often as you'd expect. These guys are pretty good about being poker faced, at least to us. We're down in the clubhouse early in the day for them. We're in there from 3 to 4 o'clock, a few hours before the game. We don't really see them before the game, when maybe they'd be tensing up. But, when they're dealing with us, they're usually about the same, whether they're going well or not going well. There are rare exceptions where you can tell a guy is down, but it actually happens much less often than you would think.
All right, so you mentioned a couple more for you before we let you go. You mentioned names like Brad Sham. You mentioned names like Vern Lundquist. I can even put Frank Fallon in there, right? Other Hall of Fame broadcasters. Where do you come down on football? We're in Texas. We're talking football right now. When you watch the Cowboys now, or even if you're on the peripheral, I'm not sure where you come down, but you've seen it all. Do you get caught up in where the Cowboys are right now and how they need to turn it around?
I do. I live in Dallas. They're my adopted team. Brad is one of my best friends. I'd love to see him get to do some playoff games again, get to see him do another Super Bowl and hopefully win another Super Bowl. So I root for them. I root for Dak. I think he's a tremendous human being. I'd love to see him have some success and have some success in the postseason. So, yeah, I'm into the Cowboys. And that's really changed over the years. In the early years, I resented all the attention that the Cowboys got at the expense of the other teams in town. First when I was doing minor league hockey here, the Dallas Blackhawks and the Fort Worth Texans. And then later on when I went to work for the Rangers, how little press the Rangers would get in comparison to the Cowboys. But, I've kind of learned to live with that over the years. And now that the Rangers have won a championship, I'd really like to see the Cowboys win one. There's a whole generation plus that hasn't seen the Cowboys, win in the playoffs. And I think it's about time.
Last question for you. You make that call, and the Rangers have won a World Series. Do you feel, having done it for as long as you did, do you feel celebration or do you feel relief?
That's a great question. And it really was a combination of both. And, I hope that people could hear that in the call, the relief in the way I said it's over, as if the suffering is over, the long wait is over. And then it's exhilaration on top of that, really a combination of the two things. And the whole thought that, that I felt that day, the day of Game 5, when, I really felt like I was walking around in a dream that the Rangers are going to win the World Series, that the disbelief, the incredulity of it all lives on even a year later. Sometimes it's hard to believe that, they really pulled this off, especially the way that they did it in the most unlikely fashion.
How does it feel knowing that your call will live on forever?
Incredible. I think of the call by Tom Cheek on the Joe Carter home run and, all of the other great ones that ended World Series. And, Joe Castiglione's call when the Red Sox finally won, and Pat Hughes' call when the Cubs finally won. And, I'm really proud. I didn't screw it up, and that's the main thing.
All right, Eric, you definitely didn't screw this up. You are truly a Hall of Famer. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate all the work you do, and I appreciate you carving time out of your schedule.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy to have you today.
No, thanks for having me. And we always family no matter where I'm at.
all is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did.
So,
Deserve it, man.
which seems like it fits.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe more relaxed. What were a couple of your biggest takeaways?
The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that.
Has the general manager changed at all in the draft for you?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.